Something that goes hand in hand with materials is lighting, because you can't actually effectively talk about a material or see a material properly without talking about lighting for that material. So I feel like I just have a scene here that I think I would be able to effectively talk about lighting here. So what I have here is a character, and then you can see I have a light up here, and that's what a light looks like. Now you'll notice that I kind of want to like add other lights in here and kind of mess with that light, but every time I do it affects my render view. So what I can do, I'll just put this render view up there, and then over here I've got, this is my single perspective, my 4-view layout, and then I can split the view right here. That way I don't have to mess with this render view, and I can go panels, perspective, and then I can create a new one. And then now I can rotate this and freely like grab stuff without affecting my render view. In fact, maybe I'll move this just kind of over here like this. Okay, great. So to create this light, I'll just go ahead and delete it, where I have 0 lights in the scene. Now if I go to create lights, I'll do a spotlight. And now I can scale that up. Okay, the scale of it doesn't really matter as far as like the intensity of the light or anything, but I feel like I just want to be able to see it a little bit easier. Okay, so now I'm just kind of rotating it down. So this would be like kind of like a flashlight, if you will. I can see the direction of the light here. And then I can also go like this, panel, look through selected, obviously as long as the light is selected. And if I go look through selected, now I'm looking through the light, and anything inside that green circle is going to be illuminated. So there, now I can see it's going to illuminate my whole character. Now if I go back to panels perspective, now that's where the light is. And you might be thinking, well, why don't I see the update right here? And that's because by default, the light is not bright enough. So right here, if I select the light, these are the attributes of the light. So I'm just going to give this something like 1000 intensity and hit enter. Okay, it's kind of hard to see, but I can start to see some of my image. I'm going to add another 0, make it 10,000. Okay, make it 100,000. Maybe make it 1,000,000. Okay, there, now we can start to see the light, or we can see that character. Zoom up here. So I want to kind of talk about some of these attributes of the spotlight. And I like to talk about the attributes of the spotlight because it has the most attributes out of any light. So if we can understand this, then we can understand the attributes for all the other lights. Now color, that's pretty obvious. If I switch the color, that's going to change the color of the light. Okay. I'm going to have it, I think a good rule of thumb is just kind of have a like slightly off-white. Maybe I just kind of a tad yellow. Okay. Intensity, once again, you might have to crank up the intensity. Don't forget about that. Because by default, that 1 is way too low to see anything. Now, decay rate is how the light kind of dies as it leaves the source. And by default, there's no decay. So that means that if you shine this light, it would travel for infinity. Okay? Where in the real world, the light will actually die as it's traveling. In other words, getting less and less bright. And you can see that there's different kind of formulas here for that light to die. And the one that matches the real world would be quadratic decay. Okay? So now it's brighter up here than it is down here. That obviously depends on the, the scale of your scene and how big the light is and that type of thing. But that's decay rate. Cone angle, okay, that's obvious. That's pretty obvious. That's just how big your flashlight cone is. Okay. Penumbra, that's how feathered the edge is. So you can see that I've got kind of an inside feathering or an outside feathering. And drop off is how bright or dull it is from the center of the light. Okay, of the center of kind of the the cone of the light. where penumbra is more of the edge of the light. And then also if I go into shadows, if I scroll down where it says use ray trace shadows, I could uncheck that. And let's see. There we go. So no, I have to go somewhere else. I have to go into the Arnold settings. And then I can come down here, and where it says cast shadows, I could turn that off if I wanted to. And now you can see it's not casting a shadow. It's just illuminating our character. So if I go to cast shadow. Now, you'll notice that the render is kind of speckly, okay? That has to do with something we're going to talk about later, which is the render settings. So I clicked on the render settings up here, the one with the little gear. And right now, my render settings are set really low. If I start to increase these numbers, so maybe if I put these all up to like, let's say 3, I might start to get a kind of a better result. We'll talk more about that kind of in a different lesson. And you can see that now it's taking longer for it to calculate. But if I give it some time, it's going to actually make a nice quality image. Okay. So there's kind of a lot of things that we kind of have to talk about that relate to one another. But this is kind of your introduction to lighting. And now if we look at, so that is the main attributes of the, if I go here to the lights, that was the spotlight. Okay. Now, if I switch this light, you can see that I can switch the type of light here. If I switch it to directional light, okay. Now, directional light might not have to be that bright. I can bring this down. Okay, even to 10. And a directional light would be more like the sun, okay? Think of a directional light as the infinite wall of light that is shining down, we'll say from the top down, but it doesn't matter how far the character is from the camera, it would never be able to get away from that light. Okay, so think about, once again, like the rays of the sun. And you can see that there's not too many options that I can adjust on here. I can adjust the color and the intensity, and that's about it, right? Another one, we'll say area light. Okay, now this one, I could try bringing this up. Okay, this one is a little different. Let me see if I can see it over here, and I can stop this render if I want to. But an area light, I can see is a square, is a defined area, so like height and width. And notice I don't see it, physically see it in my view up there. But the thing with the area light is that, think about it kind of like as a computer monitor screen or something, like I'm defining how big the light is. It's not coming out like from a cone, like a flashlight. It's more like coming out from a window or something along those lines. If I switch this to a point light, okay, and if I hit play, a point light is like what it says is a point of light. And I'm going to just lower this intensity. Okay, and if I move this, it's going to illuminate our model depending on how close it is to the model, obviously. And there we can kind of see it looks more like, I don't know, candlelight, if you will, where it is we'll call it an omnidirectional source of light, meaning that, you know what, I'm going to switch this back to perspective 1, meaning that it's kind of coming out of the light uniformly in all directions. Okay, so unlike the spotlight, which is it's kind of all energy focused into one direction, this is uniformly in all directions. Okay, so I'll continue with other lights in the next lesson.